Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and this is a follow-up video to the video I had put up just very, very recently, uh, and it was called "Why I Walked Out of Sound of Freedom," and I put a hashtag on it. It's not what you think. And as soon as I started the video, I said, "This is not a review of the film," and it seems like a whole lot of people didn't get that point. But before I go on, I want to say once again, I am demonetizing this video. I am making no money off this video. And I also don't want the advertising there to distract you. I want to make some really good points because the responses I got back were so incredible. I got attacked by so many people for saying why I walked out of this film. And the reason I had walked out was because I was sitting next to an elementary school child, a little girl. And as the film started and they're showing children being abducted and a little girl being taken into a motel room where she is cowering as a big man comes toward her to rape her. I'm sitting next to a little girl, and it made me incredibly uncomfortable because she's watching something I think she shouldn't be watching, and I certainly don't want to sit next to her watching it with her any more than I want to be next to a child in an R-rated film where the idiot parent brought their 7-year-old in, and on the screen is two people having sex, and I'm sitting there with a 7-year-old next to me, or a slasher film, which I would never see, mind you, but if one is there and there's a 7-year-old next to you, do you want to sit there while she's watching somebody be gutted on the screen? I felt extremely uncomfortable as an adult sitting next to a child who I thought was inappropriately watching this movie. It wasn't about the movie. The movie is quite tame for adults. Believe me, it's rated PG-13. And for adults, it is a PG-13 film. I just don't think an elementary school child should be watching stories about pedophilia and child rape, even if it's to shine a light on it. It's not appropriate. Anyway, that was my opinion, and it upset me. And the responses since then have been this: you're a libtard. You're a Trump-tard. You're an old hag. I mean, the things that I was attacked about were unbelievable. I was attacked for people claiming that I'm saying nobody should see this film because I must be a groomer myself. I must want children not to know about pedophiles and about child trafficking. I want children to be sucked into that. How outrageous is that? This is ridiculous. And then I hear people say, on the other hand, they were saying things like, "Oh, are you so old that you don't understand our children today are smarter and they can understand more?" Well, maybe they understand things, but maybe we still shouldn't have children taking their innocence away so young. And that's my opinion. And we can still talk to our children without putting them in situations which they really shouldn't be in, like watching this movie when they're only 10, 11, 12 years old. I don't agree with that. 16, I'm okay with. Not an elementary school child. Now, do I think children should be taught stranger danger? Of course. and so I got just amazing amount of attacks. Take your head out of the sand. You clearly haven't done any research in your life. I don't even understand how you're a criminal profiler. You don't know a thing about sex trafficking. I've been a criminal profiler for over 20 years. I have a family member who has been a detective working in child abuse and working in sex crimes. I wrote this book, How to Save Your Daughter's Life. Last chapter is on, I can't show that. Sex trade and sex trafficking. That's the last chapter. An entire chapter on that, along with other chapters about child predators and serial rapists and serial killers, stalkers, risky relationships young people get into, dangers of social networking and the internet, date rape, partying, drinking, drugging, casual sex, and gangs. I wrote a whole book on the dangers that your children can get into. So, yes, do I know about sex trafficking? Yes, I do. But here's the problem. There is a lot of information out there on the internet, and a lot of it is hyperbole. It's not that it doesn't exist and that there aren't great numbers, but the numbers are highly exaggerated and things are conflated to confuse, to make points. And people get really outraged. And if you try to correct some of the misconceptions, like the major misconception, which I will talk about in a little bit, that what we're seeing in this film, a sex trafficking in outside of the United States, and I said it does not happen that way in the United States. Oh my gosh, everybody goes crazy. Yes, it does. Tons of children are being sex trafficked by sex rings in the United States. No, they're not. There are children who are being abused, sexually abused. There are children who are pedophiles get a hold of. There are children who are working in the sex trade, who are in the sex trade through being lured, okay? Not kidnapped, being lured. I'm going to get into this fully in a little bit, so you can understand where you need to protect your children and how you need to protect your children. It does no good to not understand the actual situation just because you want to be outraged. No, let's learn things properly and understand how it really works. All right, so first let me talk about Sound of Freedom. That's why a lot of people hear, what is my review? All right, The Sound of Freedom. The Guardian actually called this a controversial film. I see absolutely no reason why this would be called controversial. Maybe some of the people who made the film have said controversial things, but not in the film. There's nothing in this film particularly that I thought was outrageous, ridiculous. I thought it was a very solid story about a man trying to save some children from child sex trafficking south of the border. Now, at the end, there's some statistics, which I'm going to get into because those are, I think, exaggerated. And some of the statistics aren't what you think. They mean something different than people think they mean. I'll get to that at the end. All right, but let me just talk basically about the story. And it's very tame. I want to point this out. It's tame. I didn't have any objection to seeing this. I mean, as an adult, it was, it wasn't, they're very careful. There wasn't really, I don't think there was any bad language in it. There were no scenes where the child was actually being raped, just about to be raped, where you knew it was about to happen. You saw, he's watching the video of the child being raped, and all you see is the expression in his eyes. And I guarantee you, it's not something you want to see, okay? It's not something that's very pleasant. And I personally, as a profiler, have seen a lot of things, which most of you have not seen. I have seen photos you have not seen. I have seen videos you have not seen. They're not pleasant things, okay? So I've been around the block, if you want to put it that way. I'm not naive. I'm not ignorant. It's not like, oh my gosh, I just had no idea these things were going on. No, I know what's going on. All right. So anyway, in the movie, they're not showing you anything that the actual action happening. So it's actually a very, very tame movie in that sense. Now, what I do want to show you is this movie. This movie is called Sold. And it's about a 13-year-old girl from Nepal who was trafficked to India into a brothel. That you can find that on Amazon Prime. I really like that film. I kind of like what's in that film better than this film. This is a good film. I liked how they presented the child's actual life in the film of Sold. And it's brutal. And it is. Somewhat graphic. They're not showing nudity or anything, but there's some graphic stuff in there in the sense that you're seeing a child that she's tied up, and she's been given some drugs because she wasn't very cooperative. So they tied her up and gave her drugs. And you see one man after another man after another man coming in front of her face, all these men. It's and they're showing the whole life of the brothel. It's a tough film to watch, and how sad it is. I prefer that film because I think it's much more open about actually how things are. This is a much more, would upset way many less people as far as the actual content goes. People are still very upset about the fact child sex trafficking exists, and maybe some people didn't actually know that it did. So they're learning something. But Sold, I really, really like Sold, and I certainly would not let an elementary school child see that. I don't even know if I'd want a 14 or 15-year-old to see that. I don't know what age I would think would be okay to see that particular movie, but I liked it very much. All right, now, so The Sound of Freedom, he decides he wants to actually not. He's been catching pedophiles, and let me tell you, the film, just to tell you, this is based on a real story, okay? And I want to point this out because whenever they say based on, it often means that not everything in here is actual fact, okay? It's a story about some real life events, but with a whole lot of artistic license, okay? And there was actually a place in this movie which I just went, oh, come on, because I knew it wasn't true. I mean, I just like, yeah, that didn't happen. And it didn't. And so there's real life versus the fictionalized version of it. So anyway, there's some places you can go to see this. I'll put the link below. This one is called, hold on a second. It's called, History Hollywood, and it's on The Sound of Freedom, and it has the real face, REEL, and then the REAL face. So the actor versus the real person in it. And then they talk about different aspects of the movie that are accurate to true life and how it's been changed a wee bit. So Tim Ballard, Jim, I don't even know how to pronounce this guy's name. So I never heard his name. I can't pronounce it. Caviezel. Caviezel. I'm embarrassed I didn't check that out before I started this video, but I always do things straight through. So there you have it. Anyway, Jim was playing the role of Tim Ballard. Tim Ballard is the guy who has been working with. Let me tell you what he worked with. He worked for 12 years as a special agent for the Department of Homeland Security. And he was catching pedophiles because what you see in the beginning of the movie is these different photos of children. And so there's a pedophile that'll be going through and looking at all these photos of children. And they're just showing the headshots of the children. And it kind of indicates that the pedophile can pick out the child and he's going to get access to that child. That's sort of the way it's put. But I believe an awful lot of stuff that's done is we have pedophiles online who never actually access children. They access photos and videos of children. And there can be one child that video of that child goes to many, 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 many pedophiles across the world. And you catch the pedophile, but you're not necessarily able to figure out where that child is. So you can't save the child. You just get the pedophile. And he's actually may not be touching that child ever. He's a pedophile. And some people say, well, as long as he's not actually committing the crime of raping the child, sexually assaulting the child, well, he's allowed to think what he wants to think. Okay, he can, but he can't act. He can do that in his own little fantasy world, his little dream world, if he wants to. But once he hits that button on the computer and accesses child pornography, he goes down. So is this crime as bad as a person who actually assaults the child? Well, you could argue that, but so that's what that starts out. And then, and he gets frustrated because he feels like, I can catch the pedophile, but what about the kids who are being pulled into the sex trade? So the next part of it takes place in Honduras. And there's a father who has a little girl and a little boy. I forgot the ages. Maybe the girl's 10, the boy's 8, I'm guessing. And she has a pretty voice and a pretty face. And this is following a true part of the story. That's this beauty queen who had won like pageant, she goes and says to the little girl, "Oh, you're so pretty." And she talks to the father and she says, "Hey, I'm having some auditions, and why don't you bring your daughter and bring your son, to these auditions, and they might have a chance to get in the entertainment industry." And so the dad, the girl's so excited, and they put him as lower middle class, and that makes sense. He is working, so the children seem to be fed, seem to be going to school. So he's not at the lowest income level. And actually, I want to let you know that most of the traffickers focus on the very poor, very, very poor children who have no food, half the time don't have a home, don't have parents who can pay attention to them, because maybe they have to work so many hours or whatever. Maybe the children are homeless on the street. Maybe the parents have too many kids, and that they say, "Hey, we're going to take your kid for the day," and they're like, "Okay, we're gonna take him over here, and he's going to help us clean some trash up." And they go, "Okay," and they never see the kid again. This father had a little more going for him, and so this isn't usually the level, but all right. So they take these children off to this. The father comes into town, into the capital. I think it's the capital. And he drops the children off at this location, and he wants to go in. And she goes, "Oh, no parents here." And you can look in and see other children, and there's cameras around. It looks legit. She says, "Come back at 7:00 sharp." And so he goes away, and he comes back at 7:00, knocks on the door, gets no answer, opens the door, and there's nobody there. His kids are gone. And you see him running around the street going insane because his kids are gone. And it's very heartbreaking. These children are then end up being trafficked from Honduras to Colombia on some freighter in some kind of container. And I'm looking at that, not really. That's exaggerated. Generally speaking, the children they're groomed in their own neighborhoods, pulled into things that are fairly local, and sometimes then they're transported, but usually by a vehicle, a car, a van, whatever. And they're usually not taken out of the country, but if they are, it's just over the border to the next, whatever is nearby. And sold. The girl is brought from Nepal. She's offered a domestic job, and the family is very, very poor. And they're like, "Oh, this woman seems like a decent woman, and she's going to take you to do domestic work." And then the little girl's happy because she can provide her parents with a tin roof because it's been raining in their house, and they don't have the money for a tin roof. And they get on a bus, and the woman takes her on a bus. They cross into India. They go to Calcutta, and the woman takes her to the brothel, hands the kid over, and gets paid. And that's that. So the container thing, I was like, okay, it's a little exaggerated. And so then the children are in not the son, by the way, just the girl. The son is supposedly sold off to some guy who has a fake passport for the kid, and he puts the kid, little boy, the 8-year-old, on a plane, flies the kid to Mexico, and then on the border, the information is gotten through that this kid is at the border, and then they managed to rescue the kid at the border. And I'm like, okay, I thought the plane thing was weird. I mean, again, I don't know why they go. I didn't quite get that, but I thought that was probably exaggerated. But all right, they saved the little boy. That's very nice. But his sister is missing, which is not actually true in real life. He did have a sister, but she wasn't missing. So anyway, the sister's missing still. So Tim Ballard becomes kind of obsessed about this little girl being missing, but he's trying to find her, and he's hoping he can do that. So he works with the Colombian government in the U.S. To set up the sting operation. And in the sting operation, there's this island where they lure. They get all these sex traffickers, and there's a bunch of them all get together and set up this thing for rich people to come and have fun on the island with young children. And in the movie, they move in, and I forgot how many they rescued in the movie. Is it 40, 48 or something like that? And all these children, all these little children. And I say little children by saying, they look like they're 6, 8, 10, 12, pretty small. And the operation did exist, but the operation actually was over 3 different locations. And I forgot, let me see what they actually got in that. operation. Hold on a sec. Uh, okay, hold on. All right, during the operation. Okay, here we go. It was a play. It was called Operation Triple Take in Colombia. They actually rescued 123 trafficking victims. 50. Now, this is what I want to point out. 55 of them are minors. All right. Now, the 54 that were rescued on the island. There were 54 rescued on the island, but again, of those children on the island, not all of them were minors. All right. So I think it was about 50% adults, a little more than 50% adults, and then less minors. And here's something I want to point out to you right away, because this is one of the statistics that people inflate. And it bugs me, not because it isn't wrong that these underage kids are sex trafficked, but they love to push the age down really far, so that they want you to believe that almost every child that's trafficked is like 6, 8 years old. Some little teeny child. They're all pedophiles. No, that's not the way it is. But when they say they're minors, a good portion of minors in this business, 17 years old, 16 years old, 15 years old, maybe 14 years old. An awful lot of them are in that age range. All right. There aren't that many that are below 14. So they're mostly teens. If you well, I would hope you aren't there, but on certain porn sites, they will have women that they'll call barely legal. What do they mean by barely legal? They mean that they're barely legal in that they're just 18, but they don't look it. They look 15 or 16, but they're 18, but barely legal. Okay. Well, some of these kids are almost legal, but not quite. All right, as far as age goes. People who are interested in children, see, that's the problem when you use the word children. My children are my children, regardless of how old they are. And most of us consider children any child under the age of 18. But yet when you talk about predation, people think of children being much, much younger and not teenagers. So there are different categories of adult interest in children. And let me tell you what they are. Because they keep adding them too, by the way, and these new groups. But let me get you it varies a little bit here, but okay. So what is a person who's interested in 14 to 18-year-olds? All right. Those people are called ephebophiles, okay? Not pedophiles, ephebophiles. They aren't interested in having sex with little children like in this film, like this girl's 8 years old or 10 years old. They would not want a girl that young. That might be creepy to them, okay? It might be, because that child is, she's not even a teenager. She's not even formed a body. She's not matured at all. She's a child, you see. So to an ephebophile, they want somebody who's not barely legal, but almost legal. They want teenagers. Why do they want teenagers? All right. Let me help you understand the minds of people and understand how these people are looking, okay? Why would they prefer a teen than a college age girl? Because college age girl will be legal, right? If they weren't sex trafficked and forced into it, and they decided to be a prostitute, legal. Okay. Why a teenager? Well, have you ever been at a pool and seen the little teen girls running around in little bikinis, and they're so excited, and they have a very youthful attitude? They're fresh, almost virginal. They have shiny legs, the girls, and the boys have those. They love to wear no shirts, even when they're not at the swimming pool. They like to go play tennis without a shirt on, and the girls look at them and go, "Ooh, yeah." The other teenage girls, right? You go to the beach and you see the teenage girls strutting. in front of the teenage boys, and you see the teenage boys and strutting in front of the teenage girls. There is this fresh, very youthful, very innocent, but still sexual as far as having sexuality, because the kids themselves are starting to blossom. Well, if phebophiles want to pick those little blossoms, they want to be there first. They want something fresh. They don't want the college girl who's already been around. She's been on the pill for 2 years and she's had 4 boyfriends already. Okay, she's already used. They want the fresh ones, but they don't want children. They don't want to have a little girl. It's creepy. They're an ephebophile. In my opinion, Jeffrey Epstein is an ephebophile, and people keep going on about he's a pedophile. I don't see any evidence he's a pedophile. He's an ephebophile. That's what he got caught with. Girls that weren't quite 18 years old who were coming over to his house and massaging him, and his little business where he was luring girls in and giving them opportunities to travel with him and paying for their, I don't know, he's paying for their college or whatever, because he liked those fresh, not quite adult girls, 16, 17. That's an ephebophile, not a pedophile. All right. Most people who go and pay for prostitutes, pay for adult prostitutes. Most, because they will be creeped out. It's weird to say people be creeped out when they should be creeped out doing whatever they're doing anyway, but they have levels of creepiness, you know what I'm saying, even to themselves. So you have this level they're going to always go for adults. The majority of people in the sex trade are adults. And then you go down to the next level and you get not quite adults. And that's what the ephebophile's like. You can drop a little bit lower. And there's a new word now called, what is this one? Hebophile. It's a new one. I haven't never heard this one. Hebophile is somebody who likes kids between 11 and 14. Just on that border of becoming a teenager, but not there yet. And then when you get below 11 and below, you get into below 11, 10 years old, 9 years old. Now you're into pedophilia territory. And then there's even new words for younger children. Okay. Why is this important to understand? It's important to understand because when we're looking at a huge problem, we have to understand how we attack that problem. And when you're looking at your own children, you have to understand what kind of dangers confront them, depending on where you live in the world and what your social economic status is and whether you're, what's going on. And I want to talk about that in a little bit as to, like in the United States, what is the problem? And the problem isn't a kid getting kidnapped off the street. That's not it. Your child, not your little child. It's that age range the ephebophiles like. It's getting up there in the teen years. They're the ones that are in the most danger of being lured into something through, usually the problem is they're having issues with their home life. All right. And they're not getting kidnapped. If your daughter's walking to school and she's 15, 16 years old and she vanishes, a serial killer got her. She'll probably be not going to be alive. But if your child runs away from home, she may be working with a pimp in New York City. That's how these things work. So here we are. So now they've got the kids on. They've rescued these victims off of the island, and I'm going to say they made them all look much younger than I think they were. So I think a lot of them were more likely to be older teens. And yeah, I think the beauty queen lady, she did get arrested supposedly, and I don't have, every place says allegedly, and I don't know if she ever got convicted of that, offering an 11-year-old to somebody. So she was pushing down there, to that next category. So, but I don't have absolute proof of that. So anyway, perfectly fine. Everybody comes in, they save the kids. That's lovely. The little girl isn't there, and Tim Ballard is very upset that that she's not there. You see, so. Then he decides this is where I think the movie goes off the rails a wee bit, and it's just silly to me. And I just started laughing. I'm saying, no, this didn't happen. And I hadn't even read anything about Tim Ballard and his work and all that stuff. But I'm like, this did not happen. So anyway, he's got this obsession with this little girl because he promised the little boy he's going to basically find his sister, and he hasn't found her. But he hears that she has been abducted or sold to these Colombian guerrillas that live in the jungle. And so he says, I'm going to go get her. And somebody with some smart says, you're out of your mind. You can't do this. This is ridiculous. You cannot go into that territory. You won't come out alive. First of all, you're kind of a white guy and you're kind of noticeable. And, you're going in there and these are dangerous, dangerous people. This is just ridiculous. And so he talks to his wife about this, supposedly, and she's like, go ahead, go for it. I'm like, you got 6 kids back home. You're trying to save one kid that you're probably going to die over, and you're going to leave 6 kids without a father. Probably not what you should do. And yes, there's a poor child out there, but that poor child is duplicated all over the place. You cannot just go to save one child when you need to be saving 20 or 30 or 40, much as you like to save that child. And this is a child he never even met. So there's a whole bunch of other girls you can save without getting killed. All right. But he decides to Rambo it, so off he goes to the jungle, and he and this other fellow who's been helping out with the sting, they pose as doctors bringing in vaccines. So they get on this little motorboat and they're going down the river to this location, and all of a sudden there's a boat coming toward them with all the guys with the guns, and they're like shooting above their heads and like, we're doctors, medicos. Okay. Sorry, it's pretty funny to me. So anyway, so all of a sudden they get there and they get onto the boat and the guerrillas, and they look through their stuff and it's all vaccines. So they go, okay, fine. They bring the guys back to the village, and it's heavily guarded. And so the guys going around, and in the beginning they're like hardly letting him out of his sight, and they're holding on to him. And for some reason they decide just let this guy. Okay, he's really a doctor, so let him just wander about. And so he wanders about and he sees a little girl. Oh my God, it's the girl he's been searching for. That's amazing, truly amazing. Luckily, she has a little tattoo on her, because if she didn't have a little tattoo, I don't know how I'd recognize her, because even if you have a picture, really? Okay, so anyway, he recognizes the girl and he's like, I'm here to help you, And so that night, the little girl is in the little bed of the main guy, who he's the top dude, and he gets to have the nice little fresh thing, you see. And so he gets the girl, and she's lying there. And so now the guy's coming at the girl, about taking his clothes off, about to rape her. And Tim Ballard jumps up behind him and goes, whack, and basically kills him. And then grabs the little girl and runs through the jungle to well, it's not his boat, because the other guy is still on the boat back there, because he's like, they only took one of them, right? So he didn't even have a boat. So so luckily for him, just happens to be another boat available. And so he jumps in that boat, starts up the engine, and races off. And then the bad guys, the guerrillas, they jump in another boat, and now they're chasing him down the river. And amazingly enough, he makes it to the meeting point with the other guy, and then they run to the van that's waiting on the shore, and they take off on a gunfire every place, and they manage to escape. And they bring the little girl home. Happy ending. All right. Okay, it's artistic license. All right, it's based on a true story. It's not the exact true story. All right. Do I say they can't do that? No. Okay. It made the audience happy. They left them with the feeling of if you try hard enough, you can save even one child. Okay. What's the true story of that? Okay. That little girl didn't exist there. There was a little boy named, I think his name was Gardy. And this all took place, that whole segment actually took place in Haiti. So there was this family, and they were at the church, and somebody came up and grabbed the little Gardy, who was a little boy, and they grabbed that little kid and vanished with him. And so the team tried to find the kid. The claim is that they went into the jungle between the Dominican Republic and Haiti looking for him, pretending to be doctors, and they didn't see him, but they gave out medications and stuff to the kids and were helpful. Well, I'm going to say they didn't go into an area where guns were pointed at them all over the place. It wasn't done in the dark of night, okay? They just were going in there, and probably just into a rural area, quite frankly. And it turns out that there was a sting operation and with the government, and they found that an orphanage and rescued about 24 kids from this fake orphanage. it was a trafficking orphanage, and that little boy wasn't there. And the father was very sad about that. But he said this incredible thing. He says, well, if I have to lose my son to save 24 other kids, well, at least that. What I thought was pretty amazing of him to say. And but now I want to point out something else, because here again is where we start having the information that's not quite accurate. Well, let me stop for a second. End of show. Perfectly fine. You see no problem with the movie. I say go see it. It's both heartrending and heartwarming. It shows a problem that we have in the world. The problem doesn't quite work as is shown, which I'm going to get into all of that in a minute. But it still represents a good portion of it. So I'm okay with it. I'm absolutely okay with it. So go see Sound of Freedom. It's a fine film. Nothing wrong with it. Now let me get back to the issue about the orphanage. In Haiti, which is an extraordinarily poor country and has really bad earthquakes and leaves like a couple 100,000 kids homeless, there is a problem with orphanages. And the orphanages, what will happen is parents who have no money, can't feed their kids, they have these traffickers come and say, hey, well, take your kid, put them in the orphanage, and that orphanage will feed them and take care of them, and they'll go to school. So they're like, okay, well, what better thing do I have to offer my kids? Okay, fine. But it turns out that's not what they give that child. Now, mind you, I want to point out here, this is where people get misinformation. The majority of those kids in those orphanages are not being sex trafficked. All right? They are being used for free labor. These children work their little butt skis off and they don't get paid for it. They're lucky if they get little bits of food. They're being used as free labor. There's a lot of human trafficking in this world that has more to do with labor, free labor, than it has to do with sex trafficking. And they conflate these two together and give you a huge number. And because of that huge number, people get, oh my gosh. So I'm going to go into some of the numbers. Let me pull them up. So you can see. So I'll go through some of these numbers, which I think are misrepresented, to show you the reality. And by the way, one of the accusations I got was that I didn't understand what was going on in the world. I'm ignorant of what's happening in these countries. I'm just like, never been any place but Ocean City, Maryland to the beach, because I live in Maryland, right? All right. Not true. That I've been to Mexico 5 times. I've ridden buses all over Mexico. I've never gone to tourist areas there. I've spent my time in many of the cities in Mexico, the small ones, the big ones. I stayed in people's homes. I really love Mexico. So I want to point out that I like a lot of the countries that have trafficking issues. I point this out because a lot of people also have disdain for these countries. Like, they're not doing anything for these kids. They're all bad countries. No, they're not. They're countries that are struggling. And with the numerous issues. And so Mexico is a fabulous country, by the way. And I've never run into cartel issues there. And people are wonderful. Culture's great. Food's good too. I've also spent time in Nicaragua. I've been to Costa Rica twice. I've been to Guatemala twice. And I've been to Honduras. All right. So I have been to Central America. And I tend to stay in smaller places and cheaper places. So I'm not much of a fancy tourist. All right. And the other place I spent a lot of time in, I've been to West Africa, I've been to North Africa, I've been to Egypt twice. And I've also been to India, which is one of my favorite places in the world. I've been there 5 times as well, usually going to spend a month at a time. And one of the times, this is me, I'm in Delhi here. I gave a seminar to the detectives and to the CBI, which is like our FBI, in criminal profiling in Delhi. There you can see me in my sari. And this is another time I was there. These are the 4 children I was supporting through an educational group, which supports poor children who cannot afford to go to school in India. And by providing money for these children, they get to go to school. This is me. This is at one of the schools of all the children at the school. And the organization, by the way, is called Uplift a Child. If you go to upliftachild.com, you can sponsor children. And there I am in the middle. And I went with the two people to the right. You see the gentleman there, Sam. He He runs this organization with his wife, and I went on a trip with him all through South India, visiting all the different schools that the children were at, and it was very, very interesting. And also we went up to Rajasthan and everything, really, really good stuff, and see what the needs were in all these places. While I was there, I also got to visit. This is actually looking down from the people we were visiting there. This is the alleyway where people do, they sell the buckets and things. Laundry's done out there. This is a slum in a location called Vizag, a very nice city, by the way, but they do have their slums. And these are the wonderful people that I met in the slum. They were just so friendly and nice, but they struggle. They struggle to survive. And this kind of area, slum area, is where a lot of times human traffickers target. Because people are desperate. They don't have enough money. So if somebody comes and offers a domestic position, for example, and you think, okay, and that person gets taken away for a domestic position, but they actually don't get paid, or maybe they disappear into something, or maybe they do get pulled into sex trafficking. But it's the level where there's severe poverty that this occurs at. I also, this is me up. I'm up in Punjab. This is a deaf school, a deaf and blind school, and I'm working with the deaf children here. Because I'm fluent in American Sign Language, but not in Indian Sign Language, but I was learning it. And here I am teaching in the classroom there. All right. Why do I point this out? Because I want you to understand that I'm not, as some people say, you have your head stuck in the sand, you don't know anything about the world. No, I do. Believe me. I think for a lot of people who are yelling at me, I've probably been in way more places than you've ever been. And the second thing I want to point out before I go to statistics and then go to the US issues is this. While you're being outraged, because you've seen this film and you think it's a great film, and that's okay, and you're outraged, which, okay, I understand that. While you're being outraged, I want to know, what the hell are you doing? Are you just going to sit here and yell at me because you think I'm not good enough and call me a name? Because I don't think the same way you do about something? Because you think I'm downplaying something? I want to know, what are you doing? Are you supporting children's education around the world? Are you helping alleviate poverty that puts these children in this situation? What are you doing to stop sex trafficking around the world? Child sex trafficking, child labor trafficking. What are you doing to stop that? That's what I'd like to know. And so if you're just going to be outraged, don't say anything to anybody else because you're not doing anything. Do something. I mean, some people say, well, I'm going to support this. I'm going to pay money to the producers. No, pay money to help the children and actually help the children. They're making a crap load of money on this movie. They have the right to do that. I want to know, though, how much of this money is going to go to rescuing children. Now, the other thing I want to point out here about the rescuing of children. Somebody points out, and very rightly so, you can rescue 10 or 20 children, and those positions will be filled the next day because the underlying issues in the country have not changed. So in Seoul, the girl does get rescued, along with the other young children that were in the brothel with her. They are rescued, and they get a chance to be at a place that is going to help them, be safe and have a life and deal with all the trauma they have been through, massive trauma. And hopefully they can help these children to have something in life. But the next day, there's a brothel down the street that they didn't get to raid. So with the massive amount of poverty, you get massive crime. You get massive abuse. And a lot of that abuse comes from the family members themselves. Not, because you could have a father who's can't get work, so he drinks too much and then he abuses the children. That can come that way. Or the mother has no place to take her children, so she has to go stay with her brother-in-law or something, and he abuses her and the children. You have all kinds of things that go on because people are in such dire straits. They're in absolutely horrific situations. So unless you alleviate all those underlying causes and give more opportunities for safe lives, for food, for work, for education, you can rescue 20, but next day there'll be 20 more. So that's just something to keep in mind about the reality of it. Now, let me go to some statistics. Here are some statistics that were put on. I have that. This is listed on the site about the movie, and I was at the movie theater, and at the end they roll the statistics. I want to take a picture, but you're not supposed to in the theater. So it rolled by, and I don't actually know whether this is the exact same, but some of it seems familiar. So I'm not going to claim that what's on this page is the exact things that were at the end of the film, but there was similar stuff, and it bugged me. All right. And let me tell you why, again, hyperbole is a problem, because hyperbole doesn't allow you to see things as they are. All right. Here, child trafficking statistics. There are 27.6 million trafficked persons globally today, and almost 20% of them are children. Okay. That's not sex trafficking. That's trafficking, labor trafficking, mostly labor trafficking. As a matter of fact, a lot of the ones coming into the United States across the border, that's labor trafficking. Farming is one of the big places where child trafficking goes to. And there's just a lot of businesses, sometimes domestic stuff, where people end up working in people's homes and don't get paid properly and are mistreated. So there's a lot of human trafficking into all kinds of little industries, and it has nothing to do with sex. Approximately 350,000 children are reported missing every year in the U.S. Yes, there are, and so people go, oh my God, 350,000 children are in sex trafficking. They've been kidnapped. No, they haven't. A good portion of those have been taken by a non-custodial parent and aren't found at that moment in time. Now, a year later, they may be found, but a different parent takes another child. So these statistics, it's rolling. It's rolling from one year to the next. And so a lot of those children are found, but then maybe they even disappear again. So they're now missing children again. Some of these children are runaways and have ended up in could have ended up in the sex trade as runaways. And then it says here, of that total, an estimated 100,000 are being trafficked. Again, trafficked by whom and where and exactly how and what for. So they can be trafficked for other reasons than sex. And I also want to point out the word traffic, because this has become a problem. The word sex trafficking was created originally so that law enforcement, if a pimp, for example, I live in the DMV, which is District of Columbia, Maryland, Virginia area. If a pimp is in Maryland and he drives 20 minutes or 5 minutes, he can be in Virginia, just right there. He can go right into DC. Sometimes the girls will go back and forth between DC and Maryland. Let's say you got a pimp and he's got little 6 girls he works with, and they've got a couple houses, one in DC and one in Maryland. So they use sex trafficking to be able to charge them with certain things because they cross the border. That's what it was originally the intention was. And we used to just call it prostitution. You go down the street and you see a girl in some fishnet stockings and a little pair of shorts, and she's standing on a corner in a kind of shady area of town, and you go, she's a hooker. Now it's called, and she's a prostitute. Now it's called sex trafficking. It's gotten a new name, and sex trafficking means to people kidnapping and imprisoning. That's not necessarily so. Most time it isn't kidnapping, it's luring. It's offering things. Hey, come and stay, girl. Hey, you don't like living at your parents' house anymore. Why don't you come stay with me, honey? And then you come and stay with him, and he feeds you, and then you have sex with him, and he says, there's no way you're going to go back home. Hey, I know, if you want to have sex with this dude, he'll give you $50. And she goes, well, I already had sex with you, so okay, I'll have sex with this guy. That's called sex trafficking now. All right, this used to be called prostitution. So it's not sex trafficking. Most of the time, does not involve abduction. It involves luring. All right, even in third world countries, most of the time it's like, hey, I'm going to help your kid. They're not grabbing them off the street most of the time. It's making offers. I'll take your child to the orphanage, and then they put them to work, or they take their, that kind of thing. All right, another. Okay, child sex trafficking has been reported in all 50 United States. No crap. Of course. So all you have to do is have one underage kid who is 17 years old end up as a prostitute. Sex trafficking. Of course it's in all 50 states. Naturally. This one says 57% of U.S. human trafficking victims are minors. Again, they're human trafficking. Yes, 57% are minors. That means they're under 18. It doesn't mean they're 8-year-olds. And it's human trafficking, not necessarily sex trafficking. So you have, like, for example, a lot of the kids coming across the border with the coyotes, they're being human trafficked. They're not being sex trafficked. Some of them end up. That's how they survive when they get to the U.S. You don't have documentation. Yeah, sometimes you end up, like I know right down the street from me, they just raided a place that was an apartment house. And in one of the apartments, they had 3 bedrooms, and they had women from Honduras and Nicaragua and Guatemala in there prostituting because they all were undocumented, and that's how they made their money. And they made their money mostly within the Hispanic community. Were they enslaved, or could they have walked away but just simply had no place to go make money, so they stayed? A lot of women say, "Hey, I wasn't even being trafficked. I just needed money." Here's an interesting point for you guys. Do you know there's about 25,000 Asian massage parlors in the United States? Once upon a time, I think it was a number of years ago, they said 9,000, and 3,000 of them were in California alone. What are Asian massage parlors? You probably have them in your neighborhood. Drive down the street and you see something that says, some of them are all 24 hours. Some of them look just really shady, but they have some Asian thing attached to it. They're all prostitution joints. Did you not know that? Now, Massage Envy, mind you, is a national chain. That's a massage. I've been there. You pay their money, and a real person with a certification gives you a massage. They know what they're doing. You drop by at that Asian place, they don't know how to do a massage. They know how to play around on your body, do what they call a fingertip massage. You don't know another thing. They can take some oil and go like this. They don't have any skills. They don't need any skills, because anybody who goes in there knows they're not there for any kind of massage. They're in there for the happy ending. Happy ending, of course, is whatever kind of happy ending you'd like. Cheaper, less money you have, you get a simpler happy ending. But you pay more money, you can get any happy ending you like. And those are in your neighborhood, all over the place. So you're sitting here complaining about, oh my gosh, that's prostitution. Do you know these places exist? Do you know how rarely they're ever raided? Almost never. They just continue on. 25,000 of them in the United States. And they're Asian women, a lot of them from China, a good portion from China. Why are they there? Now, some of them have been trafficked in this sense. They're brought in from China because they want to get to the United States. So they pay somebody, a coyote essentially, well, they have a different name for those guys, smuggler of some sort. And he gets them a ticket and whatever they need to get in the United States. And they end up with 2 problems. Either they take their passports away and say, you work in this, essentially it's a brothel, but you call it a massage parlor. You work here, and when you pay off your debt, you get your passport back. That's one version. And the other version is they manage to pay their way here, but they have no English skills, and they have no contacts, and they need to earn a living and feed their children. So they work as prostitutes in those places. They're in your neighborhood, all over the place. And you know what else is in your neighborhood? I wrote this in the book, How to Save Your Daughter's Life. And this is where your teenage daughter might end up. When your teenage daughter starts deciding she's bored, that she doesn't like living at home, she wants to run away, or she doesn't run away. She just goes to a community college in the area, and she wants to make more money because she's tired of working for $10, $15 an hour. Or she's been on the pill for 4 years. She's already had sex with, let's say, 20 different guys. And she didn't get paid for that, and it wasn't even very good, so she felt like she was prostituting herself anyway. She might as well get some money for it. Where might she work, you ask? Well, top one I have is massage parlors. Escort services. See all those escort services listed? Nobody's escorting anyone, anyplace except to the bed. All right? They get paid higher than some escort services, very high-end escort services. So you have women making a lot of money, but they're still prostitutes. Bottle girls, private photography sessions, tantric erotic massages, dance hall girls, go-go girls, lap dancers, strippers. Now, mind you, some of these people will say, "Oh, I don't prostitute. I just make money, from the lap dance. I just make money from lap dance." What is lap dance? And that's prostitution. I'm sorry, but if you're sitting on some dude's lap to get him excited and probably more, that's a kind of happy ending can happen right there and then. So you're prostituting. And the whole funny thing about these situations where, let me read you 2 more. Adult services all over the place now, all over the internet, Twitter, Facebook, Craigslist. You have girls prostituting themselves right and left, and erotic and porn films. If you don't think porn is not prostitution, you're wrong. And a lot of those girls get essentially trafficked, lured into that. Hey, you can make money. And then whatever, they're on drugs or whatever. They need to buy more drugs. So now they do porn. That's become a massive, massive industry. And so, yeah, that's out there. But a lot of people don't understand how easy these things are to get into and how girls don't even realize it sometimes. I was out in Hollywood and I went to work because I was trying to be an actress. So what I did was I went to this there was a dance hall, and all I'd do was dance around the room with a guy, and he gave me a ticket every time I did a dance. And I had all these tickets because they thought I was pretty, and I danced well. So what happened was, well, at the end of the night, I got my money for each one of the tickets you get money for. So I thought that was great. The next day I got fired. Why? Because I didn't go home with one of the guys. This was not a dance hall. This was a prostitution place. And the guys didn't come there just to dance. That's how they met the girl they wanted to actually pay for the prostitution services. I didn't know that. So I got fired because it's not what I didn't know that was what it was. So there's a lot of ways your girls are going to get lured. They're not going to get kidnapped off the street. So please understand that. They'll get lured. In this country, there's no reason for sex rings to kidnap anybody because they can get the girls that are running away, that are doing drugs and that want to do porn, or they're going to be there. They got lots of reasons. They can get them. And they can, if you've ever seen porn, and you shouldn't, but over at Pornhub, which is an appalling thing, that is one of the biggest child abuse things we have in this country, because children can get right onto Pornhub and watch all the most vicious sex stuff they want to see. And women are always mistreated on there. They're always degraded and humiliated. It's horrifying. It's not soft porn like the old days where at least people are fake making love, No, this is hardcore porn, and the women and sometimes men are just degraded and sometimes physically abused in the process, and they suffer long-term consequences. But yeah, all that stuff is out there, and your kids can get involved in that very easily, especially with the contacts they have with the internet these days and being on social media. How do you protect your children? Yeah, again, they're not going to walk down the street and just get grabbed. They don't need to do that when they can get them without the police investigation. That's why I keep saying stop believing that stuff. You don't want a police investigation. What you want is somebody who nobody's paying attention to, or just runs away and they don't know where she is and she's not calling home. You want that. You don't want a police investigation. So you don't need to kidnap people. So in this country, no, it almost never happens that way. So if your child is getting into what you call sex trafficking or prostitution, it's because something went wrong. And it starts in the home where the child isn't getting what they need, so that then they start reaching out into the world and they start getting suckered. And make sure your home is a safe home. Don't bring in creepy people. That's where most pedophiles actually work. In your own home, or in your friend's home, or in your cousin's home, or you brought creepy cousin into your house because he didn't have a job and you thought you'd be nice, and then he molested your daughter. That's where the problem comes. You bring in the boyfriend because you're lonely, molest your daughter. That's where sex abuse happens the most, is in your home with people who can take advantage of simply the situation. So you make your home safe. You make sure your children are involved in good things as they grow up. Make sure they're not watching stuff they shouldn't be seeing at a young age. Let them have a childhood. Let them read Heidi. Let them see healthy movies, healthy shows. Let them read good books. Let them do art. Let them do horseback riding. Let them go to the swimming pool. Let them do good things, and be vigilant about who they're around and what friends they're with and what kind of a life they have. And then they will have no need to go that direction. They will not be assaulted because you will be there for them. So that's, in this country, in the US, that's an issue. And if you're in another country and you're struggling with poverty, it's much more difficult for you. And I feel very, very strongly that, we need to do something. Every country needs to help their own people, and we can help as much as we can any place in our own country and elsewhere. Oh, and by the way, you want to help in your own country? You got too many children on drugs. You got children with guns. You got all kinds of bad things happening out there. Go work in your community. Work with the Boys and Girls Club. Work with the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scout. Work with your church. Make it a safe community. Work with the government. Make your community safe. Make your schools safe. Stop allowing the schools to put garbage in the schools. And I do strongly object to the books that are showing up in the schools that are teaching children about sex when they're only 8 years old. Again, they do not need to learn how to pleasure themselves at 8 years old. This is absolutely disgusting. It is. It just appalls me. So the whole thing, we got so many things we need to do to protect our children. So there's nothing wrong with this film at all. But there's something wrong with a child of an elementary school age sitting there watching it because she doesn't need to be there. You do need to teach about stranger danger. You need to read my book, and the link is below. You need to read the book or somebody else's book on how to talk to your children without showing them stuff that they shouldn't see. And you should pick the age you can talk to them, and you can start building on that as they get older. But you don't have, children don't need to know about rape when they're little kids. They can learn about no touchy, but they don't need to see other children about to be raped by some man. They don't need to see that. I'm sorry, that's just wrong. I think back to growing up, and I think, my age, that I was growing up, we didn't even know sex existed, pretty much till we were like teens. We were like, oh, what happens if you kiss? You get pregnant. We didn't even know about it, which was kind of nice because we got to be kids. Let your kids be kids and stop pushing stuff on them. And if you want to see this film, see it. If you want to do something about child sex trafficking, human trafficking, and poverty, and everything else, do it in your neighborhood first and then work outward. Do something, but stop being outraged without doing anything, okay? Stop being outraged. Anyway, that's it. That's what I wanted to say today. Thank you for being here. Yeah. And I won't say any more on this now. I might do a whole bunch of videos on how to protect your children. I might do that. Okay, so anyway, thank you for being here. Hopefully I'll not see you about this again. And please, be polite in the comments. It's not that hard to do. Bye.